Hello and welcome to another C++ bootcamp where we're going to work together to gain confidence and experience in software development and specifically in the C++ programming language. The last time that we did a lecture, it dawned on me that you may or may not know how to set up the initial environment. So the first video I kind of, I made the assumption that maybe you've already got it or it's easy to figure out, but that might not be the case. So what I've got right here is a new Windows environment that doesn't have anything in it. I mean, it's got the base operating system, but nothing else. I've got 31 free gigs of space, and hopefully that'll be enough. So Visual Studio is the integrated development environment that I use on Windows when I want to write desktop programs and command line tools for Windows using C++. So normally what you would need to do is whatever your browser is, just go to Microsoft and go to Microsoft and then you find Visual Studio, but let's start over. If you are at your desktop and you actually do need to have a laptop, a desktop, a PC, something that is not a tablet. And specifically, you need, if it's going to be a tablet, it has to be a tablet that is actually running Windows 10, Windows 7, the actual operating system, and not like a Chrome tablet or a Amazon, like the Amazon Fire HD. And that's because those operating systems they're not designed to run this particular kind of software for Windows. And you can do Windows development on other operating systems, but I'm starting on Windows. So if you don't have a Windows operating system, I mean, maybe we can figure it out, but I am not sure right now what you would do other than just watch the videos without being able to set up the environment and then actually write the programs yourself. So with that being said, if we start with Windows itself as it is right now with nothing else in it, or even if you've got Adobe or other tools, you'd open your browser and then you'd open your browser and navigate to your search engine and then type in Microsoft Visual Studio. And the first link that ought to come up is something that looks like this with visualstudio.microsoft.com. And let's see, when we click in here, we'd see that we've got a few options. So if you don't already have a Microsoft account, so if you're in school, your school probably has a volume license, which means a lot of people can use the same set of software and they can install Visual Studio and all of that because the license is owned by the school. But if you want to work at home and you don't want to have to delete the software once you move on from your school or from your company, Microsoft has free options. So there's Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio Community. So we will go with Code, or let me see if the community is here somewhere. Oh, well, we can let's see Visual Studio Code. So because it's free, you ought to be able to just do what I did. You click the link, you get a download, and we can just save it. Now, in terms of features, this ought to have the same kinds of features that you would get from Visual Studio if you had a license. So it's just something to be mindful of. You don't have to worry about will you have to buy something, because you don't. They want everybody to use their software, so they've made it free, whereas it used to not be free. So once the download's done, we'll just go over to the downloads and double click the installation here. All right, yep, we'll just go through. We shouldn't have to do any customization. Register code as an editor. So we can do this so that anything that's C, C++, header files, Visual Studio Code will open it for us. We could make a desktop icon if you want to be able to find it without having to go through the start menu. Some people don't like the start menu. I don't have a problem with it, but if you find that you'd rather just have an icon, that's an option. Add open code action. So we want to add this option so that we have the choice, if you're in the Explorer, to open anything that is just like with the register code option for supported file types. And we'll also add this option too. All right, so we let it do the install. It shouldn't take that long. See, personally, I use Visual Studio, and I haven't used Code or Community in a while, so it shouldn't be that much different, but if it is, then well, I guess we're about to find out. Okay, so installation's done. Let's launch Visual Studio Code. Okay, so code, they're showing you what to do here. So let me minimize the browser, add workspace folder, install support. Okay, let's see. All right, so C++ for right now. Beautify code in place. So we'll do, let's do C++ first. Now I'm trying to remember if code is just the editor or if code is also the compiler, but if it's not, then don't worry about that. We'll go back and we'll get the right thing. If I can't, if you've seen my other videos and I'm unable to create a new solution, then we'll go back and do it over again and install Visual Studio Community. So is it done? What did this do? Guess it finished. Let's see, so new file. Oh, okay, so this is more like an editor. Yeah, all right, that's my fault. So this is an editor like, I want to say, what is the name of that editor? Now I'm drawing a blank. But this is not Visual Studio. This is Visual Studio Code, which is an editor. Because I don't have all of my options to, actually that's not true, so I can debug. But where's the compiler? All right, so let's keep looking through the options. So IntelliSense. Okay, that was quick. Oh, I see. So this is, there are a lot of options in here. Oh, okay. So compile and run single C++ files. All right. Let's install this then. Compile and run open file directly from the command palette or by pressing F6 or F7. Okay. So now that that is installed, let's see if we can't make a new file. I guess that's what I was doing the first time. So let me close this. Let me try to save my unnamed file. Oh, okay, so you can save a workspace. Can I create a workspace? All right, so let's try and see if we can't make we'll make a new workspace. Oh, okay, so we can save a workspace as, let's do that. And now in this workspace, we will do our usual thing here. We include IO stream. We use the standard namespace. Let's create our entry point. Man, I do not know why it screwed up that formatting. But that's okay. Let's go put everything back. Okay, save as, let's see, desktop. Oh, wait a minute. I thought that it would let me save this in the workspace here. Okay, so I can do a drop down and just say, call this driver. Because you can call the file anything you want as long as it's the, okay, yeah, so user bootcamp documents driver. It didn't save it in the workspace, but that's okay. Let me see if it'll actually run it here. Okay, so we want the C++ Windows environment. Edit include path, enable error, so start without debugging. Oh, I guess because it finished. Okay, so let's do what we would normally do. Try to see out our hello world. Save the file. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Let me go back. Okay, so let me set a breakpoint and then debug. Okay, so there are two errors. Let's see. Include errors detected. Update your include path. Ah, I see. Okay, so this is definitely more of an editor without the pieces. But that's okay. We'll fix that right now. So let's get out of this. Let's go back. Because I know that I want Visual Studio Community, I will just type in the name. All right, so free install. That is the wrong link. Visual Studio Community, let's pick 2019. Okay, so this is the link that I expected to get in the first place. Now, you know it's the right one because it has Visual Studio, Microsoft.com, VS Community. So now we will download it, and it is going to be it might be a little bigger, but let's save the download. Okay. We'll open the folder. Yeah, so Visual Studio Community is smaller, but that's because I think what it should do is give you an installer, and then you pick all the parts that you want to go with it. Because Visual Studio Code is an editor, but it doesn't have the compiler, the linker, and all the other tools that we've seen in the other videos. So yeah, my fault. I haven't used Visual Studio Code in a while, and I forgot that that's not the compiler, but that's okay. At least you got to see some of it in action. And actually, I think once we have Visual Studio Community installed, we'll be able to use Visual Studio Code if you want to use that as an editor and not have to fire up Visual Studio. Okay, so the Visual Studio installer manages the different components that you're going to add into the environment for developing programs for Windows. And just like with Windows installations, it does all these different prompts. But okay, so what we want is desktop development with C++. And then over here, it kind of shows you what it's going to do and how much space you need. So profiling tools, make tools, the SDK, the actual Visual Studio stuff. So if we wanted to, we could install these other libraries, header files, and packages that give you more, just more capability if you're trying to do certain kinds of desktop development. And these are just older versions of Visual Studio. But this ought to be what you want here, so we'll go ahead and click install. Hopefully that doesn't take too long. But while we're waiting, the way that I approach development when I'm not using my actual machine is through virtual machines, and that's because it makes it easier to test against different operating systems. So right now, I mean, I'm in a Windows 10 VM, but my actual machine is Ubuntu. It's not Windows. And that's just because it's easier for me to do what I like to do. I mean, I have VirtualBox, and I use that a lot for developing in environments where I'm not trying to write against Linux. And it also makes it easier for when I want to do things like use containers with Docker or do automated deployment with tools like Ansible and Vagrant. And those things will eventually get their own videos because they're topics in and of themselves. As a professional developer, I mean, you'll find that you have a lot more flexibility if you're able to build your own environments and kind of automate some of the setup that you'll need to do when you're just going through your day-to-day activities and tasks. It makes it a lot easier to be able to deal with when things fail, or just thinking about how to plan out different components that will be fitted together when you're trying to build certain architectures. But let's see what we've got going here. So yeah, so the download doesn't take that long, but then it has to get all 300 something odd packages and put them into the system here. Let's see if we can click around. Okay, yeah, so right now we're just doing Visual Studio Community, which is not professional and not enterprise. And it's because it's a free license, and I think the stipulation is you can use it as long as you're not trying to make money off the stuff you're building. I mean, the good news is if you wanted a professional license, it's not that expensive, but it's not exactly cheap either. So it's better to, get a license through your job or your school, because it makes it easier to not have to worry about that kind of thing. And with the Visual Studio license, you actually get access, depending on which one you have, to every version of Windows and some of the other tools, like, if you want SDKs and driver development kits and let me see, maybe some versions of some of the pieces that might come with Office, like the Office SDKs and things like that. I mean, they try to make it easy for you to get all the different pieces you might need for software development against many of the different products that they have. So let's see, another thing of interest might be where this stuff actually gets installed. So I don't think it's 64-bit. Yeah, okay. So Visual Studio 2019 Community, Visual St. Well, actually, okay, so it's not there. But let's see, what am I trying to find? I'm trying to find all the header files. It should be here somewhere. So if we wanted to find IOStream, for instance, we could start from the program files directory, and I believe that if Visual Studio's moved far enough along, that the header files will be on disk somewhere under this path. But if not, then we'll just have to wait a bit and try again. But the normal workflow, just for development in general, is, I mean, like I was talking about before, you've got a problem you're trying to solve where you're taking some input, doing some processing, and then presenting some output. And it doesn't matter how complicated your application is or your service. I mean, you're basically going to be doing those three things. And even if you're trying to fix issues, it comes down to some kind of input, some kind of processing, some kind of output, because you're combining functions or you're combining different data pipelines. I mean, it's somewhat similar, but depending on the industry, depending on the problem you're trying to solve, it's different, and that's what makes it interesting, because it's not always the same. All right, let's see. All right, so let me kill this search, and let's see what else we have here. All right, so a lot of this stuff is metadata, not exactly Windows header files, but a lot of configuration and setup and files that have pointers to other files. So let's see, maybe it is in program files. Nope. Okay, maybe, nope. It's looking a little better. So let's see. Are there any header files yet? Yeah, okay, that's not so bad. Let's change the view. See if we can get a detailed view instead of content. Because then I can tell where it is. Okay, so Community Common or Community VC Tools. So if we're looking for IOStream, it might be here someplace. Okay, not yet. But at least we know, just looking at it, that we've got C program files x86 because it's not a 64-bit application, it's 32-bit. Visual Studio 2019 Community VC, and then under there you've got a lot of different directories that have different header files of one variant or another. Let's see where we're at with the install. Alright, so it's 54% done. It's not too bad. And I mean, this step seems, it might seem like it's tedious, but it's, I mean, if you have never started from nothing before, you might not, you might not necessarily know where to look. So that's the point of this particular video. We're not doing anything deep, but it's kind of important to be able to get started if you want. And like you saw, you don't need everything selected, because selecting all of that stuff, I mean, it'll probably take 20, 30 gigs of space. And we originally had 30 something, but I mean, we're down 3 or 4 gigs so far. Oh, and another thing, we're waiting on this stuff to finish. If you want to know where to find documentation on C++, you can start from the Microsoft page. I think you can go to, yeah. Okay, so see how I'm here? If you go Microsoft, all Microsoft docs, there's a lot of different sections here, but really you just want to go, so from this page you want to go down to docs directory C++. We're looking for Windows development, not Universal Windows Platform. Universal Windows Platform is a specific set of header files and libraries for doing what's called Universal Windows Platform development, but that's not what you want. You want this one because it's got the classic desktop applications, static libs, and DLLs, specifically the Win32 API, and or like they got here, the C++ CLI. And that's these are the kinds of development that we're working towards with this set of videos. So eventually, once we get far enough along, we'll be writing desktop applications that work against the Win32 API. But if you're curious about not just the desktop application, but if you want to look at the references, then they're here. And because we're talking about C++, you have the language reference, and you also have the library reference. So if you wanted to look at the standard library, or if you wanted to learn about the runtime, I mean, this is where you would look. So for instance, let's see. If we want the C++ language reference, and we wanted to look at different functions, how to write functions, then this is where you would go. And it would tell you all about functions and let's see, function templates, for instance. Now, we haven't gotten to template programming yet, but function templates are a way to make generic functions. And the form looks kind of like this, and we'll get to it, but we're not there yet. Okay, so it's almost done. But let's go back. So if I wanted to, so Windows Desktop Development, we went to the reference link, and what I was trying to do was find okay. I was trying to find all the header files. So the first thing you notice, though, is it's a lot of documentation. And that's not a bad thing, but it kind of makes it hard to find what you're looking for sometimes. Done? Okay, cool. All right, so this is done. So now we can make a new project. Uh-oh. Let's try again. I don't know why it got upset. So create a new project. Just thinking about it. Okay, good. Okay, so you notice that this is newer, so it's a little bit different from the interface that I showed you in the other videos, but that's okay. So in this case, we're going to go with an empty project, pick console, and then just give it a name like we normally do. And it'll show you the location where it's going to be. So we would just say CPP Bootcamp. Do create. Okay, what's your deal here? Okay, I guess it's doing it. All right, and now we're back to what we would normally see. So from here, it's just a matter of we'll add a new file, like we always do. CPP, call it sample. And unlike Visual Studio Code, this is the whole thing. So it's not just an editor. It's an editor with all the header files and the compiler, the linker, everything, like we expect. And instead of doing our hello world, we'll do something else. Let's see. See if I can do this. So some string, and I want to try to reverse that string. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make so my string is equal to hello world. This is a new Visual Studio version. Whoops. All right, so far so good, right? So then we say cout reverse string, and then pass it my string. Okay, should still be okay. All right, now in a case like this, I could write a function that's going to take some string, figure out the length, and then based on that length do a reverse. And actually, why not do that? Okay, so let's do this. So we say string length is equal to get length and then some string. Now we don't have a get length function yet, so we're going to make one. Get length, and then again const char star, some string, and let's see. What we want to do is a for loop. Well, actually, a for loop or a while loop will suffice, but we can use a while loop because we did I think we did a for loop a couple times. So now we'll go ahead and do a while loop. So we can say while. Let's see. So strings length is equal to 0, and then we want to return string length right off the bat. So we want to say, and we want to do this, we want to say char pointer is equal to 0, or actually char index. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take some string and we're going to, as long as we can read a character and not get the null character, then we're going to increment string length. So what we can do here is say, well, some string at char index is not equal to 0, then string length plus plus, and then return string length. And that should work. And it's because if some string is an array of characters where we've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, defining the string this way makes sure that all of these characters in the character array are stored, and then a null character, which is equal to 0, is placed at the end of this array. It's something that the compiler would do for me because of the definition I just gave it. So the 0 will be out there even though you can't see it. And that's what I'm banking on. I'm banking on being able to say, not 0, add 1, not 0, add 1, and so on until I get to 0, and then I'm going to stop. So the while loop says, while this is true, do something on the inside. So not only do I want to take this string length and increment it, but I also want to increment char index. So let's, all right, so we got the string, we got the length, we got the index, we got the conditional, and then we'll return this value. This ought to work. I think it'll work. So let's see. Let's see, because that's the first thing, right? Reversing a string means that this string will be backwards, but first I need to know how big it is. So string length. So let's see if that works. And then all we got to do here is do the same kind of thing where we say, instead of saying const though, we want to say char star, well actually char array of some sort. But I don't know how big to make it yet. So because we need to return something, we're going to just return I guess we can just return empty for now, and maybe that'll, actually no, that won't work. All right, so let's do this. Actually, we can just return 0, I think that'll work. Actually, maybe that won't work. All right, so now let's set a breakpoint. And yeah, okay, we did that. So first, let's see if it builds. If it doesn't get upset with us, then we can at least do the debug and see if the length function works. Okay, so let's debug. All right, so some string is equal to our big string there. And remember, like we talked about before, this array of characters has to be somewhere in memory, and it's at this location in memory. And I can prove that to you by taking this, and if I look at the window, the memory window, and put that address in. So what you're looking at here is a memory, and all of this stuff is the actual memory, and then over here is printable characters for human beings because we're not good at looking at all the encoded ASCII. but at this location is the beginning of this array of characters, and then you'll notice that the dot 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 and then the no characters, and that's what we expect. So let's see if the length works, and if it doesn't work, then we have to debug it. Let's see here. So there's a continue. I want to step over. String length is 54. Okay. I think that's right. Another way to be able to tell is if you took this, I think this memory address, and subtracted it from this memory address, you should get 54, but don't worry about that right now. Okay, so we've got the length. And now that we've got the length, it should be fairly straightforward, but all right, so what we would do is say char array, let's see, new string, where new string has to have a size of string length, and then we initialize it with nothing because, oh really? Expression must have constant value. Oh, okay. So let's see, const expression int, what, true length, just to give it a name, is equal to string length. Maybe that'll work. No, it doesn't like that. Okay, because this isn't constant. Yeah, that's fine. All right, so in this case, we have a value and we need to use that value. So now what we're going to do is we're going to need to allocate instead of making a static array. And I know you don't understand most of this, but we're just just thinking through a solution. That's all. Input, processing, output. That's the only point of this. So let's see. We've got a new string, and what we need to do is something called a malloc. We're going to do memory allocation, and as time goes on, we're going to see how not to do this because this is actually not the right way. But for now, we'll just do what we can because we want to get it to work. So we want to do a malloc of, let's see, size of a character by the actual length. Let's see, what am I doing wrong? Type of void star cannot be used to initialize entity of type char star. Okay, so this is a malloc of what are you upset about? String length, size of char. So size of char should be correct. But then this is upset because, oh. So, okay, what it's saying is the malloc function is going to take a size and then return a void star. This void star just means a block of memory that is pointing to whatever. That's what the void means. It means I don't know what it is yet. It's just void. It's not really void, but I know what type it is, so I have to do a cast to the right thing, and that's all it's saying is you're trying to do a void. I can't take a void pointer and turn it into a character pointer, so you have to do it, is what the compiler's telling me. So then I just have to do that, and once I do that, it should be okay. So I'm basically saying I want a new string, but I want to allocate memory, and I want to allocate enough memory for the full string of characters that I got from my getLength function using my original string. And I could have really called some string a ridge string or something like that, but I didn't. Okay, so let's keep moving. So we've got string length, we've got new string, and we're going to return new string. But before we do that, we need to, what's going on here? Okay, yeah. Before we do the new string return, we really want to reverse the string. So we're going to use another while, and let's see, we're going to do char index again. All right, so the VM is deciding to try and do, okay, so char index is equal to string length. Now, the string length is 54, but remember we're going from 0 to some length minus 1 because it's 0 indexed. It's an array. So we actually want char index not to be string length, but to be string length minus 1. So we're not outside of the bounds of the actual array. And in the while loop, what we're going to do is we're going to actually fill in new string. So let's see. I think there should be a memset function that will clear this. Let's see, is there a memset here? Yeah. So new string 0 and then string length, I believe, should clear it out. And we should probably just debug this part so we can see what's going on here. And don't worry, we will get to all of this shortly. It's just right now we're just trying out our new compiler, so if you feel like you're lost, just bear with me. And if you're happy enough to have Visual Studio installed and you want to just do a hello world, then by all means. We're almost done with this though, just bear with me. So new string, do the malloc, memset, index string length minus 1, and then while character index is greater than equal to 0, we're going to do character index minus minus, but before that we're going to do new string at char index is equal to oh wait, no, that should be fine. So actually, yes, we need to do two things here. So we've got the original string, and we want to populate the new string with the reverse. So we can do not a while loop, we should do a for loop, because I can initialize more things. If you remember what I said, I think in one of the other videos about how the for loop works. So int I is equal to 0, and then j is equal to string length minus 1. Well, let's see, while j is greater than equal to 0, and then we can say I plus plus j minus minus. I think that'll be good enough. So then doing this ought to get us there. All right, so new string I is equal to some string j. And we don't need to do this. So new strings index is going to go from 0 all the way up to the end of the array forward, in a forward direction. And some strings value is being retrieved from the end and moving to the beginning. So if you think about the direction of I is going that way to larger values, and j is going the opposite direction to smaller values. And this should, in effect, reverse the string. So now we're just going to find out if that's true. So first of all, will this stuff even build? Hopefully it does. And if this works, then we can celebrate and wrap it up. Because even though it's only 2 functions, well 3 if you count main, I've done some things I haven't explained yet, especially with pointers and all of that. And I'm making use of functions that you don't know yet, but don't worry about it. I mean, this is just to test out our new installation, and we will definitely get to pointers and other functions and blocks of memory manipulation and all of that. We will get to it. We'll take our time, so don't worry about it if this is a lot at one time. But let's see if this works. I'm curious. So we already did that. Let's try to debug here. Now what I'm hoping for is that I can get my block of memory. So let's step over this piece. All right, so far so good. Now let's see if the mem set works like I expect. It should turn all that stuff to zeros. If it crashes, then I know I need to look it up. Okay, so that's looking better, I guess. Let's see. So where is this thing? So new string. Did I not do that correctly? Let's take this memory address and look at it. Oh, okay, that doesn't look that bad. Actually, let me restart that so you can see what happened in memory. So restarting the function sets all the variables in memory up again. So new string doesn't have an address yet. That's why you're seeing this error reading characters of string. So as a quick, what is this thing? This char star is a pointer, and it's pointing to memory. But right now, it's not set to anything. So I'm going to set it to something by doing this malloc function. So when I step over this, okay, now it has a memory location. So we can copy this memory location and put it up here. So now you see a bunch of CDs because it's not initialized to anything useful. So in the next call here, I'm going to set this block of memory to zeros to initialize it. And I'm using the length that I got from my getLength function. So let's see. All right, so you see how all 54 of those guys are now set to 0. That's what you would expect. You're not used to seeing that, but trust me, that's what you want to see. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're going to do this is the part where we want to see I go forward and J go backwards. And if we've done it right, then we won't have any unexpected crashing. So I'm going to set the breakpoint right where I'm going to do the return, where I'm going to give back my string. So let's step over and hope it doesn't die. Oh yeah, I meant to do continue. But what we see is I is 0 and J is 53. So if we want to know what's at 53, then we can do what's called add a watch. So I would say some string at J Okay, and that's equal to the last period. And this ASCII value, of course, is the ASCII for the period. So if we continue, now continue is not going to step. It's not going to do this line by line walkthrough. It's going to go down to my red dot, and we should have a new string that's actually reversed. All right, so now if we look at what's in memory, we see that it is reversed, and it worked like we expected. So it's pretty good, considering that we just wrote it right now and a lot could go wrong. But I do want to point out that there's one thing that you have to be careful of. When you do a malloc, you have to do a free later when you're done using this new string. And I'm not done with it yet because I'm returning it to then print it. But because I've printed it and I haven't freed it, I'm going to leak memory. So let me fix that. So let's stop debugging. What we wanted to do was make sure that we had something that would work like we expected. So now that we know it works, let's do a better job with managing that memory. So now that I've got this new thing, I want to actually say char star new string and set it to the reverse. So once we do that, then we should be able to print it out. And now that we can print the string out, we're done with it. And now that we're done with it, we can do a free. And once we do the free, we should be good. There shouldn't be any memory that we have to worry about after that. And let's just make sure that that's the case, because what we don't want to see when we try to do a free is we get an exception about null pointers or memory corruption or anything like that, because that's bad. You don't want that. And this is a long one, so I appreciate you sticking with me. Let's see if it works like we expect. So all we should see is ooh, and you notice it kind of works, but what happened here? So we've printed what looks to be some things that are beyond that memory location at the beginning. So not ideal. And that's probably due to the fact that we when we printed out our character array, we didn't give the cout function a tidy way to know where to stop. So it's going to do what we told it. And in future videos, we'll do a better job of that. But we were able to do a free. So new string is now equal to nothing again, like we would expect. And that's good. So what we've done in this video is gone from not having Visual Studio to installing Visual Studio, and then we wrote a little program that did a string reversal just to test out our new installation. I incorrectly installed Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio Code is an editor. It's not Visual Studio. So we went ahead and we installed Visual Studio Community, and everything was good after that. I do want to thank you for watching. Hopefully you found this useful. If so, hit the like button, subscribe, leave comments. Let me know what I could do better. Let me know what you found useful. Let me know about things that I don't know that you'd like to talk about, and then I can create a video for it. Thanks again, and see you all later.